Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the City of Wilsonville's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee Speaker Series event focused on supporting transgender family, friends, and neighbors. My name is Rick Wallace. I'm on the city's DEI committee, and I'm one of the founders of Wilsonville Pride. This evening, we are fortunate to have community members sharing their lived experience as well as perspectives and resources from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI Clackamas, and Basic Rights Oregon. As our speakers share their personal experience, we ask that attendees keep an open mind and maintain a respectful decorum. Please also be respectful of fellow community members in the audience. I will introduce each of our panelists before they share their remarks. First, I would like to welcome my friend Mina Lemke.
Thank you, Rick. And hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone here today. We have a full room. It's great to see. Just want to start out by sharing a bit about myself. I like to hike. I'm an entrepreneur. I am an inventor, a jeweler, a lapidarist, which is someone who turns rocks into prettier rocks, a rock hound, an engineer, and a programmer. And I also happen to be a trans person. And you know what? That last part is pretty much the least interesting thing about me. With how much focus there's been in recent years on transgender rights and how much discrimination trans people face, you'd think that we make up a sizable portion of the population. In reality, we actually make up less than 1% of the population in the United States. The disproportionate amount of discrimination faced by trans people makes it all the more important to have support from our local communities, the places where we live, where we work, and where we contribute to society. When I transitioned, I'd already been living in Wilsonville for a few years. And the first time I went out in public as my actual gender, it was kind of terrifying. I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know I'd be laughed at, ignored, or subjected to violence. I am very happy to report that this community did not let me down, and for the most part, those negative interactions did not happen. Everyone here in this community has overwhelmingly made me feel supported and valued as a person. So how can you support the trans people in your life? Whether we're your neighbors, your loved ones, friends, family, the answer is generally the same. Just treat us as people. Treat us like you would treat anyone else. Treat us as the gender that we choose to identify as, and do not treat us necessarily as trans people, but just people. Being trans does not change our worth, and we are so much more than our gender, just as you are. I want to thank you so much for listening to our experiences today, and I hope that you continue to listen and reflect on the lives of the trans people in your life going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. Next, I would like to introduce Micah Bishop. Mikhail Micah Bishop was raised in the Wilsonville K-12 school system. In his early 20s, between earning his degree at Portland State University and beginning his career as a social organizer, he transitioned from female to male. Micah loves public speaking and performance and is excited to share his lived experience as a transgender man in Wilsonville. Micah.
I am excited. The vibes in here are a little dull, so I'm hoping to pick it up. And it's nobody's fault. It's just, I really appreciate all of you coming out and listening to people speak for a good amount of time. I am Laura's child. I am a name changer and a shapeshifter. I am someone who was raised in this town and left and came back. And I can think of many examples that I'd like to share with you, but primarily I'm just glad to be able to speak about this. The language that we have is new. We're developing new dictionaries, new communications, ways of talking to each other about this, but many of us in this room know that this is not a new concept. Trans individuals have existed in many societies for long periods of time, and that intersex people are not frequent, but they are possible when we are created in the womb. When I was in elementary school, there was even a successful gender transition that was able to happen without a lot of us talking about it. There was a child in my second grade who discarded their given name and went by a chosen name during our time in elementary school. And all of the kids knew and accepted it and even corrected substitutes. And that child is now somebody that I still know who has successfully achieved a medical transition in their adult life, but it was always something that we all knew. The teachers knew, the children knew, it was just something that happened. I've also seen an unsuccessful gender transition, which was somebody in middle school who was received with a lot of bullying, frustration, name calling. It was not as cut and dry, not as kind. So it's interesting that you said that being trans is not the most interesting thing about you, because I was also going to gloss over my own transition and say it's really not that interesting. All of us shapeshift. Our hair thickens or we lose it. Our weight changes in our body. The way that we're in relationship to our jobs and our families, all those things are subject to change. We lose our hearing and our eyesight as we get older. We can gain aptitude in our muscles and in our abilities if we put effort towards them. And the same thing was true of the moment that I was interrogating during COVID who I am to myself and who I am to my family and how I would like to see myself grow up. Before I transitioned, I was a very unhappy person, and I couldn't see myself growing into old age or having a family, and now I can see myself doing those things. I have a clearer perspective of who it is that I'm going to be in the future. Honestly, I like that person way more. My friends and I joke about who I used to be. They're like, yeah, she was crazy. But what I'd also like to emphasize in talking about allyship and family support is that the difference in the amount of time that I was able to struggle and interrogate my relationship to the world, it was very different than the amount of time that my family was allocated that. As it was during COVID, when I would come back, my mom's going to speak a little bit about this, but I was changing at a very rapid pace. And the things that were changing me were a mystery to some of us. So I personally didn't have enough patience with my family as they were meeting me in a new role. I've equated it now that I've lost people, I've equated it to like someone losing someone who's important to them. They change irrevocably. It's impossible to understand like the loss of it, but I would rather have that loss and have my family be incredibly accepting of who I am than to have the loss that affects a lot of other members of our community, which I'm sure as many of us know, the data is bad. The data is bad. I would much rather struggle interpersonally than have anyone go through that process and lose me. Returning as an adult to my hometown has been like really gratifying. It's been really amazing. I've been met with a lot of kindness from people that I didn't expect it. It's been a little bit funny going through the store and recognizing someone and them not recognizing me back and just going, all right, it's good enough for me. They're still here, they're still cooking, they're probably good with your family, you know. She's pregnant, he's lost his hair. We all go through changes, it's strange. But having people be able to navigate this problem and like the problem of social acceptance and physical change, I think that's something that Wilsonville and Oregon in general is much better equipped to handle than other places. So when I'm interacting with trans people, I know generally that my story is the exception and not the rule. That I'm very lucky to be raised in a family of people who love me for me, no matter what career or partner or personality I grow into. I'm very lucky that I feel safer walking in town as a transgender male than I did when I was a high school female. And I'm very lucky that I haven't lost anyone in misunderstanding. I really appreciate all your time. And I'm going to pass it over to this lady.
All right. Thank you, Micah. All right. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Laura LaJoie Bishop. Dr. Laura LaJoie Bishop is an active member of the Wilsonville community. She has been a resident and business person in Wilsonville for over 30 years and takes great enjoyment in community service, time with family and friends, and an active lifestyle. Dr. Laura will share her experience as the parent of a transgender son. Dr. Laura.
First of all, thank you all so much for being here. I am by no means an expert on this topic. I'm here as a parent and as an ally, and I appreciate all the friendly faces in this room because it brings a lot of peace, like Mick said. First off, when Micah was born, I'm going way back now, I remember the day that Mike and I were sitting in the hospital and he was walking around with this little bundle going, oh my God, Mick could be an astronaut or a doctor or a ballerina or a football player. And just as we were saying that, the nurse walked in and looked at us like we were crazy, like, that's a girl and you're saying football player. And she walked out of the room and we just laughed. I mean, because all we could see was this pure light. It was pure potential. So it never occurred to us that this potential was going to go from being an actual ballerina to this stunning man sitting next to me. I grew up as a tomboy myself. I played football. I wrestled. Mostly boys. It was way more fun than the girls. And I remember thinking nothing of going from dresses to shorts and t-shirts that said the dog ate my homework. Or going from only wearing yellow the entire year, he did that, to not being allowed to stand anywhere but in the boys section in Target. We couldn't shop anywhere except for it had to be cargo pants or it had to be dinosaur t-shirts or anything that didn't represent female. And it never occurred to me that this was a pattern that was going to increase over the next 20 years. But Mick became very proficient in music and in theater. And because he's nearly 6 feet tall, he was given the privilege of playing the Pirate King and the Cat in the Hat and the Lion in the Wizard of Oz with great prowess. And nobody knew if it was a male or a female, and it didn't matter because it was the role. And so now looking back, I realized that some of the times that we had together, particularly in high school, Micah was playing the role that he thought he was supposed to play as a teenage girl. And the comfort that he had in playing male parts or gender-neutral parts, that was also a role, but it came so naturally because it was his essence. When Mick went to college at Portland State, that was a very difficult time. As he said, he was not a happy person. We were often fighting, particularly with me. And COVID made this huge change in our lives where we didn't see each other for months at a time. And there was a point where this young man who was transgender, we realized this ongoingly, came to live with Mick and his roommate. And we, again, thought nothing of it. It's like, this person is welcome in our house. He's being kind to us. He's being authentic with our child. That person, male or female, didn't matter. It was a good human. I didn't really see the change coming because there was so much social media regarding, he, her, they, them, he, him. I'm like, what? Seriously? Do we have to call person by their gender? Like, it didn't fit with my upbringing, with our generation. And so I didn't understand the importance of it and the importance that it has on this generation. And there was one time where Mick was home for a meeting over Zoom, and I happened to, walk up next to the computer, and it said he, him, and it was before he'd come out as a male. And I'm like, what are you doing? And instead of telling me he felt more comfortable and this is who he was, because we were still developing the conversation about how to have that, he said, when I'm in these rooms, sometimes I feel like I have more authority speaking as a man. And that was like a punch in the face for me, because I am a powerful woman. I come from generations of powerful women who are very self-assured and who lead rooms of hundreds of people. And so that was really hard to hear. And so I had to kind of stuff that and go along. The next thing that happened was, as I was resisting this information, Mick became confident enough to tell the world on Facebook that here I am Micah, he, him, this is me, and it was a stunner. Particularly the next day when one of my patients came into the clinic and was very callous and just like, oh, how do you feel about having a son? I wanted to go, you can leave now. Like I wasn't ready for that conversation with people that were going to be unkind and insensitive, and he was not saying it in a kind way. I would say, as someone who is transgender or who is not sure of their identity and trying to figure that out, be sensitive to your families, because like Mick said, the language evolves slowly for the person on the receiving end. You're living the experience. We are adapting to something that wasn't part of our makeup for a long time. As I leaned into understanding and seeing how fulfilled Mick is in work and in service and in relationships, what I see now is this beautiful, smart, funny, kind, creative human that you see. I'm grateful for the relationship that we have and that we're continuing to build. And I sit here as a parent and as an ally. I think that it's important to know that I still raised 3 daughters. And we had a transition that we have to be able to live through and know that I now have my eldest son and my 2 daughters. I think that when, as parents or allies and friends, that here are some of the things that help me. Listen more than you speak, for God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Learn from your child. Learn from the organizations that we're going to hear about here in a minute. And know that if you don't feel supported, there's someone there who will listen. During COVID, there weren't any groups that were meeting in person. I couldn't go to a trans support group. I tried. The one that was normally meeting in Canby in person wasn't. And I was not about to put myself vulnerably in front of Zoom without feeling like I could have somebody reach out and touch my hand or lean into me. So I leaned into my friends. Everyone that I knew who had a transgender coworker or child. Some of my patients that I would lean into because they were in transition and they didn't need me to judge them. They needed me to care. And so I tried to take that same level of care into my child and into my relationship. Let go of perfection, because we all make mistakes. And our job now for our children every day is to just keep showing up. Above all, your love can literally save your child's life. Research shows that family acceptance is the strongest protective factors. And I had a lot of fear. I mean, in the whole process of this, Mick moved to Austin, Texas. Thank God it was Austin.
Guys, Austin's the Portland of Texas. It's not.
But it was that thing like, okay, if you traveled the world, he went to Mexico City, he traveled around the US, and there was a point where he went back and forth from Colorado to Georgia and back part of the way by himself in a car, had a flat tire, and had a couple of good old boys help him fix it. I mean, there were things like that that I couldn't have even imagined. But I had to lean into the fact that I have faith that my child is smart. He's not going to do anything stupid or raise a red flag or, bully somebody into bullying him. That wasn't what was happening here. What was happening here is that he was leaning into his authenticity. And the people that he was meeting were meeting Micah. And it didn't matter whether it was a male or female. It was a human who needed kindness and care. One of the things that this journey has taught both of us, and I would say that extends to our entire family, is that love doesn't shrink to fit someone's old self. It expands to the person they're becoming. And that this story for everyone here isn't just one of storytelling, it's one of courage. To show up, to look yourself in the face and go, who am I? Who do I want to be? Why am I here? And to continue to live purposefully every single day. The one thing I want to go back to that I think is really important is language. I think that when we're unsure of the language, whether you're on the receiving end of someone who is trans and you're not sure what to say, just ask them. Have a conversation. Don't be afraid. Because if someone has a chip on their shoulder, that means that they're struggling and they're not sure themselves and they need to figure it out, so you can make a date to come back to that conversation. Or they're going to have given it so much thought that they're glad you're finally asking the questions that they wished you had been asking all along, instead of sitting with the misunderstanding and not allowing them the freedom to self-express. I'm complete.
Thank you, Dr. Laura. All right, our next presenter is Frankie Lane. Frankie is a peer support specialist with NAMI Clackamas. At NAMI, they help individuals and their loved ones navigate mental health challenges and access resources. They facilitate a queer support group at NAMI and work with families of trans people to foster acceptance and support. Frankie has also served as a crisis counselor with the Trevor Project, the national LGBTQ+ crisis hotline. As a trans masculine person, Frankie brings both professional expertise and lived experience to their advocacy and support work. They're honored to be here with you today to provide their experience as a non-binary individual, as well as provide resources available from NAMI Clackamas. Frankie?
Hi, can everybody hear me? All right. Well, hello. I'm Frankie. It is really, really, really cool to see how many people are here today of all different ages. So thank you so much for showing up. It has definitely given me some hope today. I use they, them pronouns, and I identify as a non-binary trans masculine person. I know for many of you that label might be a mouthful. So I'm gonna break it down. Everyone's gender identity means something unique to them. For me, being non-binary means that I'm not a man or a woman. That being said, I feel most comfortable having a masculine appearance. And this is where that trans masculine part comes in. So non-binary, trans masculine. And if you don't want to refer to me as that, I also go by trans. So someone's gender expression can look really different from their gender identity. My appearance is masculine, and soon, if I don't already, I actually don't really know, but I will read as male at some point, or I currently am. Who knows what you think? But that isn't necessarily my gender identity. That isn't really how I feel inside. I'm a little more feminine than my outward appearance. And this highlights a really important point that I think a lot of cisgender people, meaning non-trans people, might miss. And it's that you can't look at somebody and assume their gender. So what was said earlier is if you are not sure about someone's gender or their pronouns, just ask is absolutely correct. I am so relieved when someone asks me, hey, what are your pronouns? It is one of the most helpful things you can do. So please ask. Now I'm gonna get off my soapbox and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about just my experience being trans. So I realized I was trans 2 years ago. I was 24. It happened slowly, and then it happened all at once. Slowly because over time, being referred to as a woman started to feel increasingly strange. And all at once because one day I woke up and decided to shave my head. I didn't really know why. I just knew that I needed to do it. And when the hair was gone and I looked in the mirror, I finally saw myself. So after reading lots of books on gender and having many conversations with people I loved, I asked my friends to start referring to me with they, them pronouns. I didn't really know how it was gonna make me feel. I just kind of knew that I needed to try it. My mouth is so dry, hold on. It's crazy, when you get up here and you talk, it's like, I was trying just to kind of just push through it. No way. I feel much better.
Gotcha.
Where was I? Hold on. So I didn't really know how they, them pronouns were gonna make me feel. And I was really lucky that I had supportive friends and they understood that gender is something that is allowed to be explored. And they gave me so much room and so much confidence to explore it. And so I gave myself permission to also. Sometimes when I would feel really lost in how, I wanted to present or who I was, I would close my eyes and I would imagine myself in a white, empty room, and all the walls were mirrors, which is kind of terrifying. But I'd ask myself, who would I be in that room? How would I look? How would I act without any outside influences? Who would I be if I allowed myself to be them? This is who I would be. Transitioning for me was connecting to the part of myself that I had shoved down for most of my life. It was reintroducing myself to the kid who knew exactly who they were. The kindergartner who shot their hand up when the teacher asked them who wanted to play Papa Bear in the school play. The kid who would wear their brother's clothes to school, even when he politely asked them not to. The kid who got misgendered and asked their mom not to correct people, because deep down, they kind of liked how it felt not to be forced into feeling like a girl. And as I met that kid and let them be that kid, my life got a lot better. There have been hard times transitioning, and there still are. But what makes it manageable for me are the people in my life who have loved me through it. So that's my advice. If you're wondering how to support trans people in your life, listen to them, make space for them to be who they are without expecting them to perform or prove anything. Consider yourself lucky that this person trusts you enough to let you in. Use the name and pronouns they ask for. And if you don't know them, ask. And check in, and don't forget to celebrate them. It's actually really cool, and it's actually really impressive to be trans. Don't know if you know. And if you are trans, or you're questioning your gender, listen to yourself. There's no wrong answer. That's my talk part. and this is my resource part. So I am a peer support specialist at NAMI. NAMI Clackamas is a mental health nonprofit. At NAMI, I do general peer support and family support, but I also specialize in queer peer support and working with families who have queer and trans children, other family members, and whatnot. So if you guys are unfamiliar with peer or family support, I'm basically someone that people come to talk to about a lot of different things. Some people just want someone to sit down and ask them how they're doing and maybe work through some things like you would if you're feeling stressed and you call a friend. Other people come in and they want help with specific things. They want help finding a job. They want help picking out schools. Some people come in and they want to get on SNAP. So I kind of do a lot of different things. But in the back, there's these little, I guess like my little bio, and it has a QR code. So if you want to scan, if you want to book a session with me, it's a free service. We're no cost. You're more than welcome to. I specifically really love working with family members of trans kids because you can ask me everything that you're afraid to ask your kid, and it's my job to answer and teach you about it. So that's kind of a one-on-one support option. I'm not going to go through all these resources that I made for you, but they're all in the back. These are all the same. I just thought it was really cute to make the trans flag, but don't take all of them because they are the same. So pick which one you want. But on this paper, I have resources specifically for trans people, books, name and gender marker changing clinics, gender affirming care options, and even social groups. And then for allies, I have resources as well. If y'all don't know PFLAG, it's amazing. There's a Portland chapter, and there's also so many cool things online. A lot of great information on PFLAG. So yeah, those are the resources, and maybe I'll see some of you at my office. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Frankie. Finally, I would like to welcome Maddy Oiseau. Maddy is a deeply passionate dweeb with a history of organizing labor and environmental campaigns, working with youth, and trying to remain youthful. She just made the jump from volunteering with Basic Rights Oregon to joining the staff team and couldn't be more excited. Current passions include educating activists, organizations, and partners on trans accommodation, inclusion, and liberation, as well as getting outside to explore, appreciate, and conserve the Pacific Northwest. Maddy got her start with Basic Rights Oregon in 2017 and participated in the Catalyst Leadership Program and has facilitated trainings with the Fair Workplace Project, Basic Rights Education Center, and multiple statewide action summits. She will provide resources available from Basic Rights Oregon. Go ahead, Maddy.
That was written kind of a while ago. I didn't remember that text. That was from the website. Hi, everybody. My name is Maddy. I work at Basic Rights Oregon. Basic Rights Oregon is a really cool org. I'd love to tell you about some of our work, a bit about what I do there, and then maybe leave you with some resources, although it sounds like NAMI's got you covered. Basic Rights Oregon got started about 30 years ago. Back during that time, the ballot initiative system in Oregon was being used mostly by a lot of out-of-state groups to test language out for bills in their own state. So if you lived in Missouri and you wanted to pass a law in Missouri about whether or not gay people were allowed to work in the government anymore, you could use the ballot initiative system to try and test it out in Portland and see whether people in rural or city areas liked your bill that I'm not going to comment on the merits of. And then it was cheaper than, other ways that you might investigate a bill. So the groups that would, come together to organize in response to those bills ultimately became Basic Rights Oregon, which ultimately became the National Equality Federation. So if you go back to Missouri now, there'll be like an Equality Missouri, and it's part of the same thing. So that's a bit of where we come from. A lot of the work that we do, people generally would consider political. My feeling is that the idea that the state should draw a line, a big circle around your civil rights, your personal rights, and kind of stay out of it, I don't necessarily consider political, but what I do is a lot less political. I work as Basic Rights Oregon's education and community organizer. So my work with the organization doesn't really involve trying to pass laws or write laws or obey laws. My work is really a lot more focused on meeting folks in community and having conversations about the things that keep us apart and ways that we can get closer together. A lot of that work has changed recently, not just in the current administration, but as a bipartisan, less political issue over the last 10 or so years, because a lot of places around this country are passing laws that really impact our community, right? Basic Rights Oregon serves or does our best to show up for the entire LGBTQIA2S+ community, but an increasing national focus on trans rights has communicated itself out in bills that make it really hard for some families to stay where they are around the country. So some of us here tonight are trans, some of us know trans folks and love trans folks, and a lot of us are gonna have to get used to the idea that people from across this country who no longer feel safe where they live are coming to places like Oregon because we sort of make a promise a little bit that we're going to draw that circle around your rights and respect it here. As a result, a lot of members of my community who show up here show up really needing a lot of things. You know, the trans community, I think, is well documented as having really disparate and unfortunate discrepancies in terms of employment discrimination, housing discrimination. A lot of what Basic Rights Oregon does on the day-to-day is help people navigate things like a legal name change or a bully complaint or dealing with some austere serpentine bureaucracy in some part of the state or your insurer or whatever that you didn't know how to work with before, and we help handle that complaint. This year, a lot of the work that we've been getting referrals for is folks trying to change their passports. You know, now members of my community try to update their passport and the State Department sends it back to them as confetti shredded in a box instead of as a new passport. So, you know, all that to say, we'll keep doing whatever work we can to help make sure that folks in this state have access to the same level of, like, again, personal autonomy, irrespective of identity. But even if we do that, all of that navigation at the bureaucratic level doesn't really mean much if on a personal level, folks are really struggling to make individual connections. And so that's where the Fair Workplace Project comes in. These are trainings that I do. It's a 3-hour PowerPoint. So if this has been hard for you to sit and kind of your legs falling asleep, I've got like the next level up after. We talk a lot about relationship building skills. The truth is we all build relationships kind of the same way. You've been doing it your whole life. You've probably gotten really good at it since you're still here. We all know how to make friends, but then we meet this person we weren't prepared to encounter or meet, or we didn't learn that much about early on in our life, and we feel like we don't have tools, and that discomfort inside of us can make it really hard to get to know that other person, right? I don't know how to talk to a trans person. I don't feel like I've ever talked to a trans person. And so out of either fear or usually just the awkward discomfort of not knowing what question you can ask or how to get closer to that person, a lot of people instead back away. And that's really what leaves a lot of my community isolated and far away from resources. So in the training, we talk a lot about that. We talk about where we came up with our own gender, how we learned and saw things around us. You know, I was a latchkey kid, so I got a lot of my ideas about gender from like old reruns of like Magnum PI and stuff, because the TV raised me, right, up to a certain age. And that's just the cool thing about being a kid, is you take information from everywhere around you. We learn that system and then we reteach that system for people around us. But ultimately, all of that communication and understanding each other's roles is really about this notion of expressing who I am to another person, right? And that's something you don't have to be trans to want to do. No matter what it is that's true about you, the thing about the people you love is you really want them to get to know you a little bit. I have an ex whose mom was gardening with her one day, and her mom was a lot older than her. You know, I think at the time she had to have been 71, and they were planting tulips or whatever they were doing. And she said, you know, they didn't have that they, them thing when I was little. But if they'd had that they-them thing, I probably would have started going by that they-them thing. So my ex says, well, Mom, there's still time, right? Like, I'll call you whatever you want. And, you know, what she said basically was that she'd lived in multiple continents and she'd lost a husband in a big war, and she'd started and failed at multiple businesses, and she got really good at gardening and fell into that and raised 2 kids that she loved a whole lot. And, you know, she was content with her life the way she had lived it, and she wasn't looking to change anything about that, but she didn't want her kid not to know this thing about her. And so really the relationship skill is just discarding our own assumptions about a person, and being more attentive to those things that I can hear about you and pick up on about you, strange sentence, and have that greater idea of fidelity of my picture of you. So that when you're not around, I can remember you all that much better, whether you're at work or you go, you know, to start a business on another country that fails or whatever. All that to say, you know, the trainings are really cool. We've done them for businesses. We've done them for fellow organizations, for governmental departments. I did one for the Parks Department once, where everybody was on a Zoom in their own park, and there were squirrels running across people's shoulders and things, and it was pretty cool. If you work for an organization that you feel like could use more of this training, I'd love to bring it to you, because like I said, my community's coming here, and they're coming here on a promise, a lot of times without a lot of resources, and they're gonna need a place where they can come and work, or, you know, a community that they can come and integrate to where these skills exist. So I'd love to bring them to you. In addition to that, Basic Rights Oregon has a really strong referral network. Like I said, we'd love to help you navigate finding a clothing closet for that person who maybe doesn't have the money to discard their entire wardrobe to adopt one tomorrow that represents an identity they've met. We'd love to help you, you know, get in touch with some groups to get involved in whatever aspect of this work appeals to you. But mostly we'd love to just sort of create something thick enough, something with enough proximity here among people who care about this community, that it can withstand whatever's going to be coming in the next however many years. Because, you know, I don't think that there's really any political thing that can stand in the way of people in our community finding each other and building community wherever we're rooted. But I do think, you know, if it's going to be possible for us to continue to interact and grab hands, it's not just going to be my community in the dark corners anymore, or on the periphery of larger movements the way things have been. You know, we've got to, at a certain point, break through, and it can't just be like Laverne Cox on a magazine. It's got to be all of us. I think that's about all I've got. Our website is basicrights.org. So you can check us out on there. There's a resource list. There's a whole menu for trainings. And you can also find out a lot about the other work that we do. There's 10 of us, and we serve the whole state. So you'll be surprised what we get up to.
All right, let's give another round of applause for our panelists.